Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over an interview that GamerEscape did with Naoki Yoshida at the recent E3 2017. Now because E3 took place so close to the actual launch of Stormblood, we haven't really had the time to go back and look at a lot of this information. So to be honest, I just got to reading this interview today and I figured it was worth making a video about. If you guys don't know who GamerEscape are, they do a lot of articles on a bunch of different games, but Final Fantasy XIV is one that has a huge impact on their site, and it's a resource that we use quite regularly. If you're unfamiliar with them, I recommend throwing them a bookmark, and be sure to go to the description of this video, check out the source article, be sure to give it a thumbs up, a like, whatever they have set up on the website to make sure to show your support adequately, especially considering this is their original content. So this interview is interesting for a few reasons. We got some information about some features we've been asking about for a while, and it clarifies the timing on some content that's going to be coming out in the 4.x series, notably Eureka. So let's get through to the questions. Some of them we'll spend less time on, and some of them we'll spend more time on. How long do you expect the 4.0 main scenario quest to take? He said about 1.2 times the length of Heavensward. You know what? It's because of all the voice acting. It was a great experience, but we don't need to talk about it much. Will there be a benefit for completing the animal weapon for the new Relic progression? Now, this is important because a lot of people asked towards the end of the last expansion, hey, should I complete this? And I said, it might give you some luck on the next one. It might let you skip a step on the Eureka weapon. But according to this answer right here, it has indeed been confirmed that you will not be skipping the first step of the Eureka weapon in patch 4.15, which, by the way, is what the next question and answer is. It says Eureka is planned for around 4.15. So that's two really important answers. The new Anima/Zodiac weapon won't be until on or around, or I guess on or beyond 4.15, which will also be the implementation of Eureka. And your current Anima weapons are Glamour. You will not be able to use them to skip the first step of the Eureka weapon. Eureka weapon is not the official name, by the way. That's just what we're calling it until we actually have a real name for it. What's called, as far as armor, they said they're still planning on potentially doing like a Eureka armor similar to like the way you progressed your Anima and your Zodiac weapon. They said they'll probably do something like that. That's consistent with my interview from before where I asked them if they would do that and they said possibly at some point. He's saying they'll probably do that as well. So if you like progressing your weapon, you'll probably be able to go through and progress an entire set of armor through a similar manner. Does Eureka tie into the story of the Crystal Tower? Now I had been assuming it was, especially because of the final scene in the Crystal Tower storyline. But apparently, no, they're completely separating Eureka the Forbidden Land from the Crystal Tower in Final Fantasy XIV. There will be a follow-up to the final scene in the Crystal Tower series, which involves Nero Tolskeva, but it will be at a later time. So that way we can actually get some closure on what happened when he did what he did at the very end of the Crystal Tower story. So here we talk about Omega, and if we're going to get any previews for it. Now, at the time of this recording, it's now 3:26 p.m. Pacific. Servers are going down in just under 7 hours for implementation of Omega Normal. So people have been asking, is there going to be a trailer? According to this, he says that technically, he doesn't really want to do it for a couple of reasons. One, they've dumped so much information that maybe it would be nice to just leave something as a surprise to players, as opposed to giving them these expectations. I know a big complaint with the Stormblood trailer was that it was spoilery, even though it was a lot of out-of-context stuff. So, but I can kind of respect that. We'll get to experience it completely fresh with only a cutscene throughout the end credits of the main scenario to give us a lead-in to what's actually going to be happening there. On top of that, also just too much information. Just leave it as a surprise and it might be too spoilery. So those are really the big reasons there. Don't forget, Omega's going to be dropping Genji armor. It also mentions here that they may use some more of the Final Fantasy XI armor assets because people have been asking for them. So, as well as other armor sets from other parts of Final Fantasy games, you know, other previous Final Fantasy games. We see a lot of that already. So the Final Fantasy XI part of the question seems to be the more intended part to receive an answer with. Asking about active time maneuvers, Yoshi P just comments on, yes, we will see more active time maneuvers of different varieties. On top of that, you have the content action or duty action button, like the Vril from Lakshmi, or Lakshmi. You'll be seeing a lot more of those as we go through Stormblood. You know, sometimes we have things like Leviathan with interactables, sometimes we have the duty action, sometimes we have the active time maneuvers, but they're there to make the fights feel more dynamic and not just about knowing your job. To be honest, none of them have been difficult so far, so they've almost felt a little tacked on, but if they become mechanics that can be used I guess more interestingly, I'd like to see it evolve into that point, definitely. Also comments on Sprint, says that they don't design any content to mandatory use Sprint, but of course it's useful in some contents, and on top of that, some people get better mobility out of it in terms of uptime or making sure that they can move between casts and whatnot. That is why they made the adjustment to Sprint. However, some people, they say that they notice it's become stressful using Sprint when you're not in battle and you just want to travel around normally. What's it called? So we made it so that we can adjust the duration separately depending on whether you have enmity or whether you do not. So it seems like they've already established that there is a way for them to separate the in-combat and out-of-combat effects of Sprint. So we'll probably see a change to that, something the community has been asking for really hardcore ever since Stormblood came out. What's it called? Underwater Gathering. GamerEscape asked if there would be any other underwater content. Don't. I know what you're all thinking right now in the comments. Don't, okay? Just don't. So there's sightseeing logs. There's 45 locations of 4.0. They may make a hard mode. This was commented on in a previous live letter or interview of some kind. They're still collecting ideas for other underwater content. No, don't say it. So we'll see. They're going to try to figure out if there's anything else they can do that's underwater content. Don't say it. There have been a lot of changes to G-Pose lately. Are they going to be doing... They've been doing things for screenshots. What about things for video? Yoshida just said... Our G-Pose is world class. It's the best of the best. So we're not looking at updates. Instead, they're going to create a system which is never before seen in an MMO before. Something that is visually fun to look at and be able to enjoy. It's tricky to put into words, but they are trying to implement a new visually enjoyable system. Or at least we might see more information when we start talking about 4.1. Maybe this system will improve video captures. So curious to see what that ends up being, because that's the second time Yoshi P said never before seen in an MMO. We knew 4.2 is going to be seeing a type of content that's never before seen in an MMO. Like to remind you, Lords of Verminion is never before seen in an MMO, so expectations are a little tempered right there, but we'll see. If it's going to make video captures interesting and make like machinima style content or comedy style content that comes from a lot of other great YouTubers better, that's perfect. Or even maybe guide capturing will be better. We know Costa del Sol is getting swimming. There's a car blaring its horn outside for some reason. With other 2.0 or 3.x areas be getting anything we should keep an eye out for. In terms of swimming, we get a lot of feedback about wanting to be able to swim in residential areas. That's being considered. But if we implement something like that right now, people would view insolence as the best since it has so much water. I think it's done. I've instructed the housing team to look at maps because they would need to be restructured to ensure that no matter where you have housing, you would be able to swim in a comfortable environment. Make sure it's equally situated for housing areas. So it's a maybe. Maybe we'll get more swimming in some other areas back in the Realm Reborn zones. There's been a lot of stuff said about Crafting Gathering. At this point, the game has already come out. This interview took place a day or two before Stormblood actually came out. So we've already seen the updates. The reason why they didn't talk about the updates before launching is because they're not sexy. Like talking about crafting, I was like, ooh, look at these new crafting abilities for our expansion. Don't you want to play it now? And people are just like, no, I'm good. The crafters who are already playing are like, yeah, give me more. But everyone else is like, yeah, I'm good. So it wasn't sexy enough to be talked about before the expansion launched. But as we know, cross actions work at this point. Are there any changes planned for the roulette system? We're getting a level 50 and 60 roulette. We already know that. But the other question, I'm glad GamerEscape followed up on this. Where's our 24-man raid roulette, man? It's not like that stuff is so difficult that we can't have a roulette. Just throw some rewards on that. We have been asking for that since Crystal Tower, I'm pretty sure. So there's been a big discussion about that, maybe having a roulette for that. We weren't able to do it for 4.0, but we are intending being the keyword, to do something for the near future. This is going to be implemented with 4.1 and return to Evilise. We're going to have it so you can enter an alliance raid using a cross-world party. So it's kind of interesting. This is going to be implemented with 4.1 and return to Evilise. We're going to have it so you can enter an alliance raid using a cross-world party. That being said, he says they plan the 24-man raid series, but then the second half of the answer, it's unclear if he's only talking about the cross-world party or both of these features. But it seems like they are definitely intending to do it regardless of that. They've said it for a while now. We've been requesting it for a while, and it would be great. It is a roulette that I would definitely do on a daily basis. We've been dealing with the Asians for a long time now. Are we ever going to get an ending to that story arc? And that's an interesting question, because I always feel like the Asians are like the, hey, our game's going to shut down, let's finish the story, fallback story arc. We haven't actually decided on how we'll bring a resolution to the Ascian arc. I don't think we need to hold it until the end of service, which is what I would have thought. Having the arc for them end and finding out about Zodiac or the secret behind Hydaelyn or who the Warrior of Light actually is, even if we did reveal all that and have closure, it's still not the end of the story. We can always make more expansions. We'll go to Vanadil or something like that. No, why did you say it? Why did you say it? Oh, we're going to be dealing with this comment for years now. Oh, Return to Vanadil. I mean, we have Return to Evil Ace, right? So there's Return to Vanadil. GamerEscape. So let's see. When we talked to you before Heavens were launched, talked briefly about 4.0. Since 3.0 went up, would 4.0 go down? He said that maybe down, or maybe we'll go up even further. Maybe to the moon. And 3.0, we saw the moon. He says that we're probably going to the moon at some point in the story, by the way. We have lots of conspiracy theories about what will happen. Maybe when we go to Garlemald, we'll find the studio. Oh, thank you, GamerEscape. So maybe we'll go to the moon at some point. It's pretty much all I got out of that. With all the changes coming in Stormblood, what is your most favorite thing you've been able to accomplish? It's difficult to narrow it down to a single element, starting with 4.0. Feels like we're finally independent from 1.0. Namely, even though we have got like more music and stuff. Namely, things like cross-class actions, bonus attributes, things like that. We feel like we made the preparations to move on to the next stage, progress things even further into the future we're envisioning for Final Fantasy XIV. Very grateful to the team for their effort they have put into this. So that concludes the interview with GamerEscape. Some really good questions they got out of there at E3. Jealous that I didn't even think. Every time I'm always like, oh yeah, guys, I just always forget to ask. Guess I forgot to ask to see if I could do something like this at E3. This guy. But anyway, they did a great job with that. So again, be sure to go over there. Can I find like the like button here so I can see it and show? Here you go. You got share buttons down here at the bottom. You got tweet buttons. You got upvotes. All right, well, now it's trying to log me into my Reddit account, so let's not do that. I'll do it later. And then you have Google+, you got Tumblr, you got all that stuff. But anyway, be sure to go over there, give them the hits, give them the love. I will see all you fine ladies and gentlemen in the next video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned, because with Omega Normal coming out and Omega Savage, plus all the other stuff that's going to be happening in between this and 4.1, we expect it to be a very, very busy summer here on the channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.